Hello, everybody, and welcome to another collaboration Spark of Genius OK&Y production. This is going to be the Spark of Mediocrity, like a season two, because we had a season one opening with Uprising as the last core set, Dynasty obviously being a supplemental set, so wasn't really as much, well, no new heroes for that matter to
Well, we
actually
had two
compare with
Arachnes,
DC.
or one Arachne, so you can do the
We
Arachne mirror match if you really want to.
Exactly. And I don't know how many people did. So we're back with the new, I guess, while we're recording, I guess pre-release is coming up, I think in about a week, and then the actual release of the set is about 2 weeks. So what we've done is gone through another kind of process to bring everyone a little bit of a taste of what you can expect soon. I'll punt it over to each in here.
Yeah, so if you guys didn't watch the last video, it's pretty simple. Basically, each one of the guys above me chose a hero in Outsiders, Uzuri, Riptide, and I think it was Katsu. Um,
Azalea.
Azalea,
Azalea.
Azalea. That's right. We had Katsu on the back burner, but it ended up
Katsu's
being
featured. He's
Azalea.
going to be on there, but he's not like
Mhm.
focused.
Right.
Yeah. So they chose a hero, and they made a deck around them with the new cards, and we're going to pit them against each other and a couple of meta decks to see how they shake out and see how well the hero performs and how well their deck building skills are.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not I'm not so everything is still pretty fresh. So while we do have all the cards out, pretty limited as far as actual test. I think pretty limited as far as actual testing has gone. So
Right.
probably
I
gonna
think
get
there will be
roasted. Less
some
than
some
like
churn after gameplay happens. Hopefully
a
not,
little bit.
but likely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no, it's
we'll
fair.
we'll do a couple of talks after each game and see talk through what worked and what didn't.
Mm.
So you can kind of follow our deck building process as we refine these decks, both now and throughout the season.
Yep. And there will be 6 games. No, 5 games total. I believe
Okay.
there's 5 games total after this video, and then we're gonna do deck techs on our respective channels to cover the list, maybe any changes we did um, based on those games and anything else we learned for the hero. So this is gonna be the first one about the construction. So we're gonna go over first the kind of thoughts about the release of the cards, things that kind of stuck out, possibly upgrades to already existing cards like Azalea, for instance, as we have kind
Hmm.
of on the screen here, and our thoughts there. So I guess okay, we got Azalea rolling out. So Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about Azalea?
Yeah. So I was tasked with looking at the Azalea upgrades for this new set, and the main thing that came out at me immediately was Crow's Nest. Azalea was not great at getting aim counters before. She liked Death Dealer, and Death Dealer, honestly, is probably the best bow in the game. So it made sense that she didn't want to switch over to a bow that gave aim counters. So getting a free quiver to give you aim counters seemed kind of too good to be true, and it kind of opened the way to like look at which arrows did we overlook before and what can we try to put into this deck to make her a little more disruptive in this new meta. So I focused around Crow's Nest. I thought that that was going to give Azalea a good opportunity to utilize some of the arrows that we've seen before and new ones that have come out also. So yeah, I was mostly focusing around that. I saw some really cool stuff like Barbed Undertow, which I thought was really, really nice. I think that this is going to give her some more play into her hero ability because Azalea, well, I guess Crow's Nest needs to be played onto a card that was put face up into your arsenal from your deck. So basically, synergy with Azalea's ability, you get the dominate and you add the aim counter. So that was kind of where my head was when I was looking at Azalea. I think very good possibility to be stronger into control. Maybe you want to focus more on dominate, and some good arrows to be actually better into aggressive decks as well. So yeah, that's
That's
my
fair.
initial impressions.
Yeah, she
I
looks
really like
super punishing so far.
Mm.
she does.
It's I was expecting a couple of stronger arrows, and a couple of ways to fix some of her issues with consistency.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely the raw power and like on hit effects on some of these arrows are some of these are, I would say, even better than Red in the Ledger.
Mm-hmm.
In certain cases, obviously, Red in the Ledger is
Yeah.
obviously very
I
good,
think
but
it's like the best. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I will say
but
that because of Crow's Nest, I did focus more on adding a bit more of a resource curve to her deck. She was mainly a yellow based pitch deck, but I did add some more blue just to be able to, you got the Death Dealer costing 1, you got the arrow that costs 1, and now Crow's Nest costs 1. So you're probably going to want to be pitching a blue in most cases if you are using Azalea's ability to load an arrow. So I did put in some more blue, so that might help with consistency a bit. Yeah.
That's fair. I also really liked Infecting Shot. It was actually a big arrow that I know it's just a common, but you don't need to be, you don't need
A
to be super
majestic
rare
arrow
to
to
be
be that
good.
good, yeah.
I don't want to be a majestic arrow.
Yeah.
I thought this was one of from the spoilers. I don't think this was spoiled. Honestly I don't remember if this was spoiled specifically or if it came out later when the rest of the set kind of got revealed with the box breaks.
Right.
But a 1 for 5 arrows are in a little bit of a weird spot. I think Azalea does fine with them. 0 for 4 arrows being like the other breakpoint that you can do, but I think the Blood Rot Pox is actually very punishing, making this potential for a 1 for 7 arrow if they really don't want to block and getting more resources to
Yeah.
really punish those decks that just really don't want to have to deal with it, right? Because 5 is still a lot of damage. So I actually found that pretty interesting. And then the straight up upgrade from Deadeye was quite nice with the Crow's Nest because Deadeye was just a good card included before, just a yellow 3 block +3, pretty good. But now with the aim counters, you just thoughts using, right? Like you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing really well with that kind of card. So it's really nice to get those upgraded buffs. And from the spoilers, there were just a ton of buffs. So I think new Azalea decks are gonna have to really have to pick and choose at this point. Like beforehand,
It was
just
hard
kind
to
of like
sideboard. It was hard to create a sideboard for this deck, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But now I think you're running like a lot of your cards are just like in really good spots. So that's kind of what I thought about Azalea.
Yep. Okay, want to move on? We've got
Sure.
Riptide up here. If Oliver wants to jump in.
Yep. So when I saw Riptide, I was like, okay, traps, probably control or mid range. But my very first pass, if you look at on February, there's like a version thing on the top left. If you go to the first one, that is my first pass at it. Rob.
Oh yeah, see it here. Yeah.
Yeah.
1. Yep.
Yeah. So this was supposed to be like an aggro version of Riptide, trying to abuse his reload ability. So you would do like premeditate, reload, scar for a scar, and then you can do like lace and then reload and then do a 0 arrow. Unfortunately, like you can't really outrace some of the more aggro decks. So I went to go control, fatigue, mid range. Yeah. So this is also when I realized that the crew traps will trigger Riptide no matter what. So that is why I have all 9 of the crew traps in. Some of them are in the sideboard. So this gameplay is mostly just trying to block out with like 3 cards, 2 to 3 cards, and then just shoot an arrow from Arsenal after you've reloaded or something. I have like, from the 0 cost arrows, I have Endless Arrow, Searing Shot. I had Drill Shot, but it just turned into vanilla damage most of the time. And I had Murkmire Grapnel, which also turned into vanilla damage. You don't really want that. It is probably okay in the Oldhim and decent to draw mine because it can kill Yendra and everything, but I opted to not keep them in. And then obviously you have the Bolden Shots, you have the Falcon Wings to have to try and do a little bit of go wide when you have the tempo, if they ever come up. And then for the big arrow on hits, you have the Heat Seeker and Infecting Shot. Heat Seeker is good because I have New Horizons. You can get your double arsenal that way. There's not really a lot of times you'll be double arsenaling. But yeah, if it ever comes up, then that's what it's there for. And then I'm running Death Dealer over Barbed Castaway because 1 card advantage, and 2, every time I decide to go to Barbed Castaway, I somehow draw into like a Premeditate or a Scouting Periphery, and then I would just be like, oh, this is why you run Death Dealer.
Not ideal. Yeah. Death Dealer too good?
Yeah, Death Dealer's too good. And then obviously you have the CNC, the E-Strikes. My favorite line in the deck right now is Premeditate, reload, CNC from Arsenal for 9.
Seems good.
Right.
Yeah, Premeditate being a generic and just attack action, just hits
Generic,
everything.
any attack action card. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have Scouting Periphery and Premeditate as the pumps. There's not a lot of pumps because they only block for 2. If you look into the sideboard, there's a bunch of traps. I have Blood Rot Trap for the attack reactions. I have Sync Blow because you need the 4 breakpoints. Tripwire Trap for 4 breakpoints. That is a crew one, and also prevents on hits if they want to pay for it. That will trigger Riptide. Boulder Trap is useful for a decent number of matchups. That will also trigger Riptide. If you think about all these traps and you can trigger Riptide's ability, they're usually 4 on the scale, 4 to 5.
Because
the crew traps
the
are
one
usually
damage,
5.
I guess, that you add.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The crew traps will do 5 to 6 if they don't pay. Yeah. And then Tar Pit Trap is good because on hit effects are really significant and rampant, and as well as Go Again. So that's going to really help you into aggro.
Right.
And Rockslide Trap for the blue. What else is there? I have Sigil Solace because as instant speed, you can reload with Riptide on their turn to help with dominate attacks. Some things I've considered is Salvage Shot to kill dragons, and Brush Off for more instant speed stuff to reload. To reload for crew traps because they can only be away from Arsenal. Yeah, this is what I've come up with after a couple of days of playing. I don't think it's a great deck, but I think it is a decent deck into most heroes. I feel like it's going to have trouble into Guardian and Dromai and Wizard. So Brush Off would probably help against Wizard a little bit, but it's also not aggressive enough to beat out other control decks, so like Guardian or Pistol Dash or something. So that is something to probably try and figure out for later.
Awesome.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I guess you kind of went into everything.
Yes.
your thoughts and the
deck. Save any meat on the bone for the next discussion.
Nope. That's fair. Uzuri. So I was looking at Uzuri. As far as like the cards that seemed interesting to me at the very beginning, obviously Shakedown being her specialization, nice 2 for 6, quite strong as far as the effect. Just more disruption to add to the kit because you can play stuff like Leave No Witnesses, Surgical, CNC. So it's just a lot of good, really, a lot of really good disruption. And I think the other card I was looking at was Spreading Plague. So that's another Majestic coming out of Outsiders. I've almost said Outriders for no particular reason, but I think Spreading Plague being the yellow block 3 is actually pretty good for the deck. So that's kind of like the standard that I kind of look for. And creating X Blood Rod based on defending hero. I think this is better in Uzuri than Arachne just because of Uzuri's ability. So if they tend to want to overblock because they're afraid of like Uzuri attack reaction or something like this, you can use Spreading Plague to essentially punish overblock, right? Because I feel like if a deck is able to just block for 6 on every stealth card, and they're just very good at recycling and just hitting you for reasonable damage, I think eventually the matchup will just be too hard because I'm not sure how well Uzuri can trade 2 for 1 while still doing enough damage to actually win the game. Just because of her initial power level being an assassin, she's not a particularly good aggressive deck right off the bat. Those were the 2 kind of cards that I was looking at specifically. A lot of the stealth cards, just like the 0 for 3s, nothing really in red, of course, nothing really stood out to me as being like, this is insane or something like that, or just like because none of the basic stealth cards are majestic. I don't think any of the stealth cards are majestic. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think all the stealth cards are common.
We have Infiltrate.
Oh, Infiltrate.
Infiltrate.
That's one that skills off the top. Yeah.
Is it?
Oh, is that majestic?
Oh
no, that's
I don't run.
Yeah, Isolated,
but I don't actually run Infiltrate in this list. I know the card you're talking about, but I didn't actually realize it was a majestic. But yeah, those were kind of my impression. I guess I'll hold off on explaining the deck at the moment. I don't know if Yichin, you got any thoughts about any of the, I guess Uzuri and Riptide?
Well, I have a couple of notes from other deck lists, and I kind of want to just pick your brain a bit. We'll start kind of in reverse order. So Uzuri, what was your kind of thought process for choosing which non-stealth cards to run?
Yeah, so I think it came down to, so I started with the stealth essentially, and then went the other way around. So as far as the non-stealth cards, I felt like because the stealth cards are generally underpowered by themselves, and you really need Uzuri to capitalize on that effect. The high on rate cards like CNC and E Strike kind of stood out here. Leave No Witnesses, I guess, is not a it's a non-stealth card, but not a non-assassin card. So that was also very, very strong. Just more disruption, easy to hit on hit. Ravenous Rabble, because of Uzuri's ability, allows me to come in for 5 go again and keep the chain going. And I felt the initial builds were a little bit too weak on the damage because your daggers just don't just don't do anything half of the time. Like they're fine, but they cost 2. So you're just like more expensive Katsu, and like the on hit's fine, but like unless your curve is like control style, you don't want to spend a blue and a tunic or 2 blues or 2 yellows swinging these things, right? You're not going to win the game that way. So I was looking at more of that. I did run as far as the react. Sorry, I'm also on 6 death touches, which is a little bit interesting. I just really love that it's very easy to get off in Uzuri because of the ability and codex. And it's just like so above rate that it's delicious. Like you're at a 1 for 6 on red. Like ignore the 2 block. You've got enough 3 blocks to deal with it. But you're on a 1 for 6 off Uzuri. You don't have to pay the 1. If you have tunic up and you get it with codex, you just pay off the tunic. Like there's so many ways to make this thing good. Off of blue, you dagger death touch. Like it's you can use your boots because this is still an assassin card. You can use your boots to give it go again if it hits. Like there's just so many good things you can do. And I feel like Uzuri has the easiest time playing death touch. And because it's so above rate, I'm just running the 6. I was running 9 honestly, and then I ran out of space. But I'd probably run 9 if I figure out what else to cut. But I think those are the main ones. I scroll down for a sec. I think there's one more in the sideboard. I'm running 3 cut down to size, which is probably like the main question mark. Cut down to size is mainly anti-aggro. Because if they try to race me and I just do something and they're like, oh, you was just Uzuri into a non-disruptive card. If I don't have a disruptive card, then I can try to, let's say I like Rabble, like a Uzuri into Rabble, and then I play a cut down to size, and then they just can't keep their hand, right? They have to block if they have 4 or more. So it was mainly anti-aggro because I think control decks are probably going to, they rather just block with 2 cards on the stealth anyways, so it's not typically required. But
or do react after you play cut down to size or something.
Exactly. So I found that it was like, in the testing that I did do, it was getting some pretty good trades off with cut down to size, and I wasn't like superiorly impressed with it. But as far as this set's got a lot 2 for 6 at generic, or 2 for 6 in general seems to be hinting something. We can nudge, but it seems like one of those tools that is kind of necessary unless aggro just runs you over. I think that was it as far as like the non-stealth, like non-obvious cards, I guess. The rest of it is mainly just for like the rest of the deck. I can talk about it after, or I could just like give it off to Rob if you want to ask him about Azalea.
We can save it. We can save it for the discussion after.
Sure.
So Azalea actually don't have too many questions. I think I already kind of touched on a bit of it there. So yeah, looks good. Looks testable. I have a couple of notes I'll save for myself as why aren't you running this? I'll save those for after the gameplay. We'll see how everything shakes out.
Sounds good.
No,
we're on to Riptide.
We already.
Riptide. Did you have any
honestly,
questions for Riptide or?
Yeah, honestly, Oliver kind of covered all of his choices.
Okay.
He's very thorough in that, so no questions for Riptide.
So we'll jump right into the actual discussion then.
Rest of the deck.
Over the deck. Yeah, okay. So I'll come back to Azalea then. So again, I focused around Crow's Nest. I added more blues to the deck to be able to effectively get Crow's Nest. Whenever
How many blues are you on?
Sorry?
How many blues are you on?
I am on, I believe it's 15. So my original deck, I think, had about 9, and I bumped it to 15. The reason being I wanted to get 1 per hand on average. So like 6 divided by 15 is like 4. So one on average.
That checks out.
That checks out. Yeah. Yeah, and there were actually some pretty good blue choices to add to the deck. Infecting Shot Blue seemed okay because it'd be a 1 for 4 if it has the aim counter, and it has the on hit of adding a blood rot pox. So it's kind of like a 1 for 6 if you count the blood rot. So it's not that bad.
6.
Or 2 for 6 if you add the exactly. Yeah. So 2 for 6, pretty good as a blue. I added also for blue, there was, I believe, one more, if I can find it.
The headshots, drill shots,
Let's see.
knock,
Bolton,
infecting.
drill shot, hedge. Oh, that's it. Okay,
Gotta
so
be
that was
one
the
of those.
only blue addition I think that made the most sense. I think in my previous deck I didn't have the blue drill shots, but I know that this is a card that is run in several other Azalea decks. I've played with it before taking it out, so I just put it back. It's still a very good on hit. It's a zero costed arrow in case you do have a yellow to pitch for your Death Dealer plus the Crow's Nest. You can run your zero costed arrows in that case, so it's not bad. So yeah, added more blues to the deck. Some cards I did take out. I took out a few buffs in favor of some of the newer buffs. I removed Take Aim and released the Tension. So these were kind of 0 for 3 buffs that I had in the past. A new one came to light, the Premeditate buff. So this is a very good buff to allow Azalea to draw a card at the end of her turn if the arrow hits. I think this beats out basically both of the other buffs combined. It's a very, very good, strong card. And interestingly enough, the Codex of Bloodrot, I think, was very similar to Take Aim. This card allows you, it's kind of like a pseudo reload. You add a card from your hand into your arsenal, it goes face down, so you can flip it over with your cross wrap, and it creates the Blood Rot, which is kind of like 2 damage. So Take Aim was 3 damage, this is kind of like 2 damage, but then you draw a card at the end of your turn, which I think is much better. So I took out the Take Aim in favor of Codex of Blood Rot. This is a very good card just in general, so I did want to put it no matter what, but when I was looking for something to take out for it, that's what kind of came out at me. So those are the buffs I removed. I did take out Ravenous Rabble from the deck. So I still run the E-Strikes, a very good filler card to start your turn off before playing an arrow. But the Ravenous Rabble, I noticed, because I had more blues, it was kind of tricky to play. There was a higher risk of it coming in for a 0 for 2 go again. So I removed those. There was just so many things to put, so I had to find something to remove. But it seemed like a good candidate because of that, because of the pitch curve going up. Some arrows I took out. I took out Headshot Red. With the introduction of Barbed Undertow, and a few other good shots like infecting, another arrows I meant, infecting shot, and that might have, oh, I'm also trying immobilizing shot in the deck. Might be a mistake, but I really want to give this a try. The 0 for 4 arrow that lets you use Crow's Nest and Death Dealer on for yellow, I think is pretty good. So I decided to give myself some more flexibility there with the pitch. So I added a mobilizing shot. So yeah, I removed Headshot Red. I removed Sleep Dart and Fatigue Shot, which were pretty good arrows in their own right, but given the disruption we get now with Barbed Undertow, I felt like they could probably take a backseat for a little while. I removed also some of the non-buff, non-arrow cards. I took out Memorial Ground. I took out That All You Got. The deck is a little less defensive than my previous build, so I took out that, and I took out Sigil of Solace, just in favor of some more disruptive cards. Some of the arrows I have in the sideboard that I want to really give a solid try to is Hemorrhage Bore, basically a CNC. So it's like a 2 for 5 pseudo CNC on an arrow. Doesn't destroy the whole arsenal, but destroys 1 card in arsenal. So pretty good. Very good against aggressive decks. And I talked about immobilizing shot a bit as well. So these are kind of more situational cards that I would put in like if the matchup calls for it. I took the drill shot out for now. I just figured like not every deck really cares about drill shot, to be honest. The blues can stay because I need the pitch, but the red ones, they're probably better options to put in. Remorseless too. I put it in the sideboard because control decks don't really care about Remorseless's ability. They'll probably play like one single big attack action or something, and then they take 1 damage from it. So yeah, that's basically my choice for the arrows. Other than that, we can talk about equipment, actually. I should have probably started with that. So Crow's Nest is the addition. Everything else has stayed the same in terms of the previous list, but I did put some stuff in the sideboard that might be a bit of a hot take. I put in Null Rune Boots because I'm running more blues now. So it makes more sense that you can pitch a single blue to block 3 arcane, and Perch Grapplers was always there to block out, like a dominates and stuff like that, or like very relevant on hits from aggressive decks. Let's see. Anything else interesting from this list?
You're on Rain Razors.
Yep,
I
I
find
kept
that slightly
Rain
interesting.
Razors. Very good to pair into the Bolton shots. I do have the whole rainbow of Bolton shots. So, and it's also very good if I want to get off an aim counter on hit. Rain Razor is kind of like the only way to buff an arrow after I've played it, basically. So, it could be very good to guaranteeing a barbed undertow hit or something like that. Yep. So, but that's the reason I put them in the main board. I don't think they'll come out. Yet to be determined. I'll see if they come out, but for now, I'm gonna put them in every list I run.
Yeah, sounds like you're really
yeah.
focusing on aim counters right now.
Yep, I wanted to give it a fair shot. I wanted to go as hard as I could into aim counters. Probably a mistake, but we'll see if it pans out. I have SMD
Oh, yeah.
reacts as well. The Fate for Scenes and
Nice.
Sync Belows, like normal.
Nice. It is pretty hype. So yeah, it's gonna be it should be very cool.
And I
Yeah.
think that Azalea can probably pull it off. If anyone can, she probably can. Because she doesn't like to go wide, aim counters seem to be more of a go tall strategy with a really good on hit. So I think it kind of plays into her style a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Crow's Nest is her. Only she could use Crow's Nest. Everyone else
Yeah.
has to work pretty hard to get aim counters.
We gotta
Either
use
run
the
Sand
Sand
Scour.
Scour, yeah.
Yeah, but then you don't get to use Death Dealer. I mean,
Yeah.
Or Voltaire for the. Well, I mean, you get to use the cards, but they just don't give you the aim counter, right? So,
Right.
Well, there are cards that give aim counters. I think it's like Blessing of
Yeah,
Focus, and Cody plays
I
that. So
Right.
I don't think
The
they're very
buff that
good
gives an aim counter.
cards
Yeah.
though.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean they're
Yeah.
fine, but it's just like I think
There are
this is
better
by far
buffs
the
out there,
easiest
and if
way.
you can get the aim counters by pitching one, I think it's way more worth it.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can go
Yeah. Any
back to Uzuri.
do you want to
Unless there's
comment on the
anything
deck
else.
first if there's any more comments, and if not, we can move on.
No, let's move on.
Sounds good. Let's move on to Uzuri then.
Um, Equipment wise, I guess there is one thing. So I'm running Crown of Providence for the headpiece. I think it's just like the easiest slot. I considered Skullcap. Uh, I don't know. I like the sync. I like being able to sync my arsenal and having 5 cards if I really want to. Um, and I don't know how often the extra 1 armor is really going to be worth more than syncing a card in my hand or syncing my arsenal card. I am on the Flick Knives. I think this makes a lot more. I know it is Assassin Ninja arms, I think, but
Yeah.
I think it makes a whole lot more sense in Assassin. I can't really see Ninja using this thing now, at the moment, anyways, because it's really it seems to me like it's for flicking the on hit daggers, right? The ones that do something once you've actually hit. And those are the assassin daggers, right? So I am running flick knives. I think most Uzuri lists are running flick knives. There's also really no other good option. The common is okay, but I don't know. It just seemed like the best options in the 2 daggers I start with are nerve and spider's bite. I think nerve scalpel or something like that. I forgot the actual name of it. Yeah, nerve scalpel. And I do have 2 of these scalpels, so
One is
it was kind of one of the sideboard, and then I have an Orbital class. I think it's what it is.
Yep.
Orbital class.
Yeah, Orbital class. Well, my English needs some work, but it's interesting figuring out how many daggers to run in this deck, because the issue I started with 6 and then went down to 5 and then went down to 4, and I'm sticking with 4. 4 total. You start with 2 and then you have 2 in your kind of inventory in your sideboard here. The only way to reload your daggers is Concealed Blade, which is that blue card next to Surgical here. And as Oliver's cat agrees, it's just not really like ideal when you want to run a bunch of daggers, because you have to hit. Like, it's not just like you play it and you get to reload a dagger. Essentially, it's a blue +1 for only assassin or ninja attack action cards. It's very, very specific. Now, it's a blue 3 block that costs 0, so it's in the deck. But as far as reliability, Alan put it really well. Alan Lube, he put it super well. Is that I can't see, you just can't really convince yourself to be able to hit this more than once a game. Like maybe you might get 1, 2 if you're lucky. And so when he said 2 if you're lucky, I'm like, all right, let's run 4 daggers and see if I can get lucky, right? But I think the daggers have the main purpose is to flick a nerve scalpel at them and make their reaction -1, because that is like the main interaction. You want to wait till it resolves, flick it at them. And sorry, not wait till it resolves. Do it in reaction before it resolves, and then then that defense reaction is going to be -1 because it'll be the next react, right? Timing is very important in Outsiders. A lot of them are very timing based, so it's important to brush up on that. But that is like the one thing. I don't know how many daggers the average Uzuri deck is running, but those are the ones I'm doing now. I don't have the equipment one. I forgot what it's called. I don't see it being super amazing. I just don't have space. I kind of talked about a lot of the first row. I guess the stealth cards I didn't talk about. I'm running Backstab, Sedate, Infect, and Isolate, I think, are the main stealth cards. Reds and blues, and then reds of the other ones. If you scroll down, I don't know if I think that's it. Yeah, those are only stealth cards. So, yeah, Sedate is that's the inertia one. It's just like kind of what I mentioned earlier. The fact that they're just always below rate is like you don't want to run too many of them because then you just don't have enough damage. I feel when I was testing, I was just kind of like, okay, so you don't have to pay for whatever you're Azuring in, but you pay for it with the card you're playing, right? It's not free. It's like Easter egg, right? It's not a zero cost. You still have to give it a card to play it, right? But the problem is that sometimes your hand gets really awkward as far as lining things up. But these were the ones that I felt were the easiest to either get through or create like positive return. Like Infect, for instance, is a 0 for 3 that could create a Blood Rod into 0 for 5, right? So aggro decks won't necessarily want to block this out or block period, but it can really give dividends because then you can use your boots to give go again and then maybe like CNC them or shake down or something like that. And then you get 5 free damage essentially, and then you force them to block, which is kind of like a pretty common play pattern. Codex of Bloodrot is the codex in the main board, so I'm running 3 of those. I really like it because you're on 6 death touches, so it makes a whole lot of sense to run it. And you just get to either put it in hand, like for your opponent, if they have an empty arsenal, then you make them have 3 cards in hand to block with, right? So they have less cards to block with, and then what you do is because there's no like discard with on this codex, it doesn't really matter when you play it. Unlike the other two, you really want to try to play it at the end so you can avoid the discard. But in this particular case, there is no discard clause on it because you're using a card from hands instead of a card from grave or top of deck. The Blood Rot Pox is like just 2 free damage essentially if they take it or they don't have a blue, and you get the Ponder, right? So it's kind of everything you want, and it's a yellow, right? So as far as your curve, it's pretty good. It pays for your 2 costs. Could pay for a dagger if you really need to. So Blood Rot is kind of the one where 3 of them is essentially 6 free damage plus Death Touch kind of comes out with 1 pitch off or blue off a dagger Death Touch. So I really like those. I have Codex of Frailty in the sideboard. I don't really know if they'll stay in the sideboard. They're very specific to like meta wise. Like it does it the Frailty token, the -1 to the weapons and to the arsenal. I think the attack action from the arsenal is -1 or something like that. But it seems very good. I'm more interested in getting the card from Grave. Like those are really, really strong cards. There's a lot of very good 2 for 6s that recursion's quite nice because it's any attack action. But there's still like the Frailty token is specific, so it goes into the sideboard. As far as my attack reactions, I'm running 6 Shred, ignoring the Concealed Blade. I guess that is 1. I'm running 6 Shreds. I think Shred is good because it blocks for 3. Cut to the Chase doesn't make any sense because you're not running that many contract cards. But Shred is still good because most of your cards are still going to be, assassin cards. And they all block for 3. I'm running 2 Yellow Pummel. I was on 6 Pummel and then 4 Pummel, Reds Pummel, Blue Pummel, all the Pummels, right? Because Guardian players. But I stuck with 2 Yellow Pummels, which might seem a little odd, and I'm going to keep it. And the reason is because you don't have a ton of target. Like I used to be on like 5 Pummels. You don't have enough targets for that many Pummels, and you can't use it on your weapon. So you have CNC, Shakedown, and Surgical are your 9 main board, and cut to the not cut to the chase. Sorry, cut down to size is like your sideboard. So you can go up to 12, I guess, right? If they're in there, that's not a lot of cards. You know what I mean? So it's really meant to be yellow so that you could start paying for things with Pummel, right? Yeah. That yellow you could pay for. Most of the curve is pretty light, and if you have a 2 cost in hand, you can use the Pummel, right? So I think the yellow was a bit better. I think the blue was just... It could honestly be 2 blues, but I think I'm on enough blues that I want a little bit more damage out of the deck to squeeze a little bit more. Is there anything else on the main board that I missed? I don't think so.
I think that was pretty good.
I think I explained everything in the main board, but there's some more in the sideboard, I guess. So I'm on 3 Sinks, 2 Oasis. So I'm on 2 Oasis because like you run enough blues that Oasis becomes like pretty reasonable. You're on Tunic also, so you can like Oasis off of Tunic. And since you have the dagger, you're on Arcane Lantern because you can easily just run a dagger and Arcane Lantern, and you can AB. So uh, the thing is like I don't have many games into like Icelander and Kano. Well, Kano for sure, but Icelander, it's like the Arachne matchup was actually pretty decent for Arachne into Icelander because you just mill them out and you're just running AB. It's not fantastic, but like you could get them pretty low and just fatigue them out, right? And you're pitching to get rid of their arcane damage, right? Unless they can set up some crazy combos. So that's the idea on 2 Oasis. 3 Sync just because it's Sync below. It's just the card. Like if you only have slots for 3D reacts in the deck, they're probably going to be 3 Sync belows. I think it's pretty much it.
Yeah, I know Tao doesn't think the Arachne versus Icelander matchup is particularly great, but I think Uzuri probably has a little bit more game just because she's
More
very
disruption.
slightly has more pressure and like
Yeah.
damage output.
Yeah, it's fair. I don't like. I mean, the fact is, as far as the arsenal being empty for Icelander, it's not going to happen as much as far as like a Codex of Blood Rod kind of thing,
Mhm.
which is probably better because you don't really want to give them a free chance at an arsenal anyways, which is kind of nice. But I think you definitely have a lot more disruption in this deck. Like the shakedown alone just gives you, hey, you can't pitch blues. Enjoy your turn. You know what I mean? That hurts a lot. Icelander not being able to pitch blues, that's rough, right? Because
Yeah.
pitching a blue in an Icelander deck that's 40 blues is like what else what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Um, so that's very good. You're on pummels, you got some surgicals, you could do some stuff. Your curve isn't that bad. Like it's pretty low in general, and you're on I think at the main you're on like 15 blues, something like that, if not a little bit more. So I think that's pretty reasonable, but I haven't played much into Icelander with this build. I guess unless you have any other holes you want to poke each in.
I think that about covers it. Yeah, you talked about spreading plague earlier, so that's all.
Yeah,
That's basically everything, right?
I think I think spreading plague is like gonna be an MVP card in a lot of matchups, especially in your like mid-range control matchups. I'm thinking like Guardian, where you're gonna struggle getting damage through Guardian with a lot of these cards because you just like the block 2 card to face enjoy 2 blood rot pox. Like it's hard for them to do anything when they're blocking with 2 cards and required to pitch the other 2 to avoid blood rot, right? So
Yeah.
if you're able to string it together with like a pummel or like get a nice attack to go through with your boots to gain go again, I think it's quite nice. And I think with Flick, you're able to protect yourself against a lot of the D reacts that they're able to like do, and they have to think about the math. And I think the minute you start making your opponent think about math, you're usually in a good spot, or you're just gonna draw, which it's kind of
Yeah.
whatever event you happen to be in, right? But hopefully, it's just a little bit more suboptimal for them.
Yeah. Make them do all the work, and you can just play the cards.
Yeah, or you just bluff and be like, yeah, pass, and you're just like, oh well, shit, right? Um, I think that's essentially it. But this was just like a bit of a rundown for everybody watching. We're gonna have all of the new heroes are gonna essentially play each other, and that's gonna be 3 games, and then the other games are going to be against the meta. I think we chose Oldhim. We have Katsu in there, and we
There's
have
some
Dash.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dash Oldhim Katsu, which Katsu we're throwing in because obviously it is a new deck, old hero.
Mhm.
Um, and then we'll come back and kind of wrap up any thoughts in the game as Yichin mentioned, or in the deck tech, of course. And I don't
Yeah.
know, any closing thoughts?
Not particularly. If anybody watching is wondering why we aren't doing Icelander, it's because I honestly don't think Icelander is going to be as great this meta. At least not at the level that we'll be competing at for the most part. Um, People are always like, oh yeah, Icelander has so many LL points, but I mean, 500 of that is from one person.
Yeah,
So
there's one guy who's got the LL points, and then everyone
Mhm.
else is just kind of trying to beat up Oldhim in top 8. But
Yeah,
Oldhim still keeps winning.
Oldhim still seems like the deck to beat, at least going in, and then we'll see how the other heroes turn out. But I do think Katsu and Azalea players are very happy with this set. So yeah, look forward to a big meta shift.
Yeah, I'm expecting the new heroes are going to kind of go the same growing pains as before. They're going to be like until it's any what tune like Arachne was garbage until Tao Tao won 2 PQs, right? So I think
it's still
nobody
garbage.
well, you could still win with it.
Yes.
Like, will I bring it to Worlds? Probably not. But like, it's still just depending on where you're competing, as you kind of mentioned. But I think both of these decks are pretty reasonable for like level 2, like PQs and stuff like that. I think you can like top 8, if not like do better if you're very well versed. People not have like people. How many people are testing into Riptide? I don't know how many people are going to test into Riptide, right? So you might be able to sneak a couple events in there. But with that being said, appreciate everyone for watching. This is episode 1 of season 2 of the Spark of Mediocrity channel. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe our videos, and go check out OK&Y. They're going to have half of the game, so you're going to have to check out both of us if you want to see everything. We're going to have the playlists out so everyone can go start to finish, and hopefully this should be out before release. So you'll have a little bit of a precursor of what to look forward to. Appreciate everyone for watching from wherever you're watching in the world. Have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Bye for now.
Appreciate it.